Hi guys, we're again here at the AICPA PFP Symposium. I'm super excited to be here. This year I am on the committee that helped plan it. Dan is one of my buddies that I complain to when there's an issue happening or I don't like something or I want to just complain. And he listens to me long times, sometimes. And he has been like from the beginning when I started with the PFP section, you've been there, like you've been like a really good guide. And we're not going to talk about your retirement yet, but that will come towards the end of the conversation. So I'm happy that you're here talking to me and about what our profession is about and where we're going with our profession. And there's so many changes in general in the world, and part of our profession is just like trying to keep up with the rapid changes, right?
Yeah.
So one of the things I would ask you first is, what do you think in terms of the profession? Are we doing a good job keeping up with the changes? Where are we doing a good job and where we're falling behind, would you say?
Well, I would say where we're doing a good job, I think, is covering the variety of topics that are out there. Now, we focus on it from a money side.
Right.
So I think that, from a CPA profession standpoint, I think we're doing a good job of covering some of that type of thing. The challenge, I think, sometimes for financial planners in general and CPAs and other professionals that focus on the money is the non-financial side. And it's like there's so many changes sometimes that it can be overwhelming. It just sparks all types of emotion. And sometimes it's a challenge to figure out how do you deal with those emotions. That's not what we're trained for.
We're not trained. We're not financial therapists.
Right, but it is so much of value. So,
Yes.
I mean, if I was to go back and try to take a course or something, that would be an excellent course just to supplement the way that I talk to a client or as we're talking to other CPAs. So, but that would be the one place that I think, that change management is a huge thing, and whether it's in your business or in your personal life or whatever. So that would be, probably what my first thoughts there.
That's actually a really, really good point. Like my two kids are 7 years apart, right? And my older son, I did not emphasize as much about talking to people on how you understand talking to people and what kind of psychological ways that you need to be thinking about when you're having these conversations. With my younger son, I'm emphasizing that even more because I see it so much more being more of a value than I did 10 years ago, or even 15 years ago, where today it's about how you present the information, not so much what the information is. Would you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely. And I think it's you think of kids, you think of their formative years, you think of, when you get a new client in, you don't know much about that client and you're establishing that relationship. So the way you can connect with that client in the early stages is going to be one that's going to set the tone for where you go. And so you have to be comfortable with yourself in the way that you can contribute, the way you can feel comfortable talking about things. If you jump right into the technical side, they're going to treat you like the next person that's down the line. And they're interviewing people. And it's a great way to distinguish yourself as you're talking to clients. But you bring up kids, and it's the financial literacy in those formative years is so critical when we think of the next generations, because each generation looks at things differently. And it's a great opportunity for parents. So.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that bringing in all of the aspects of how our children, the next generation, it's not only the financial education part, the mechanics, because the course that I'm launching right now, next week actually, it talks about the why, which we talked a lot about here, understanding the why and understanding the mindset, and then the mechanics comes in. So,
and one of the speakers here talked about the concept of the mechanic. Are you the mechanic or are you the guide?
Right.
And I thought that was just a wonderful way of thinking about it. That he just said, are you the mechanic and do you just kind of help them? And the mechanic's a really important part. I mean, if you had your car and you didn't have a mechanic, but I just got a new truck and said mechanically it's working fine, but I can't figure out how the climate control thing works. And so I need that guide.
You need the guide,
so you need both of those together to be able to figure that out. And I think that's the role that we play as financial planners, as CPAs, because they already trust us. And so as a trust factor, is that how do you parlay that trust beyond the knowledge and make it the planning, make it that guide, be that trusted guide. That's an interesting concept.
It is, and there's such certain connotations about CPAs in the world, right? Like, like we have no personality.
Yeah.
We can't have these
The bean counter.
conversations. The bean counter. One time I was actually given a gift from a client of beans.
They thought it was funny.
They thought it was funny. It was
Yeah.
meant to be funny.
Yeah, yeah.
But the thing is there's this connotation of us not having a personality and not able to engage. And a lot of CPAs did that before. The ones that are not financial planners, that are just tax preparers.
Mm-hmm.
And there's still a lot of CPAs that don't have time to do the financial and the tax planning.
Mm-hmm.
I'm finding that in my world, where I'm trying to hand over my tax business to some CPAs, and most of them are not planners. So they're just preparers, where my clients expect the planning. Yeah.
Well,
and
yeah.
it's needed more.
Yeah,
than,
absolutely. What's really interesting is that tax planning touches so many of the areas of financial planning that it's almost, I would suggest, it's easy to hand off the compliance side of a tax business. But perhaps the planning side, other than maybe just here's what we're doing this year and how can we improve things for next year type of thing, the planning side of that business integrates so much more with the financial planning. And tax people are talking about financial planning topics.
They are.
And they may not call it that, and that can be a discussion for another day, but that concept of financial planning and how it distinguishes from other types of financial professionals that are out there is a really important piece. And I think CPAs are well situated to kind of have that conversation.
So I'm going to tout our horn as CPA PFSs now, okay? Yep. Because I have been doing tax planning and financial planning and looking at my clients overall. It was ingrained to me, in me. And part of my my degrees is a lot of tax research. So since the beginning of me doing tax, it's always been a planning thing. But I didn't feel like there was a place within my CPA world where, what does that mean? How do I identify myself? So the PFS section is super growing. It's like a place for a lot of the tax people, the tax CPAs in the world that are looking for where they are. And if you actually analyze yourself, and like I did, and I found this on the AICPA website, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is me. And I think a lot of tax CPAs, because of so many things changing and the hourly rate of, we talked about that in one of our sessions, where when you're billing, because of AI and all these different things, it's kind of becoming a little antiquated on the way of billing. So I suggest that a lot of us as CPAs, whoever is watching us with this session, would go to look at the PFS section, because it is like an amazing space to be as a CPA and in future generations.
And certainly our goal in a personal financial planning section is to be able to provide resources that are tied. CPAs and non-CPAs can get value out of it, but really emphasize the value, and the tax touches each of these areas. So we don't have a separate tax area. We have a tax section, but we don't have a separate tax silo of knowledge.
Right.
But we integrate it all together. Whether it's the resources and all that. So we integrate that together. And it's just a great place to kind of get other like-minded people that are willing to integrate these conversations together, because that's what clients need.
They need that.
They don't need to be inundated with demonstrating all your knowledge.
Right.
And that's our job, is to say, what is the client's situation, and then how can I take all this knowledge and sift through it? And that's what we try to do, is to make that knowledge easy to get to with guides and flowcharts and webcasts and all different kinds of things.
And the thing is, what I'm noticing is that more and more we have more and more entrepreneurs since after COVID. So I feel like every client needs financial planning, in my opinion, but not all CPAs believe that, to some extent, and more, because some of them own small busices. They're into different ventures. They have a couple of different things happening. I know I got a million things happening, and that all needs to be brought together. So the financial education of the client is really important, and you need your trusted advisor to do that. And yes, you can get some stuff on social media, right? But like I've said in my other podcast, is that episodes, is that the information you get on social media, there might be on TikTok or Instagram or whatever it is, there might be one little part that's true, but you need to you can't trust that until you have verified it with your professional.
Well, yeah, the important thing about when I think of social media in general, there's a lot of nuggets of truth out there.
Yes, nuggets of truth.
But what's missing is the context of when is that nugget of truth the right thing for you to do. It sounds attractive, and they always make it sound attractive. But if it's done in the wrong way, it can hurt you.
It can hurt you, yeah.
That whole area is really important, and that's where it goes back to that guide mentality, that guide side of things, to be able to do that. So.
And I think CPAs are the best financial planners, not because I'm one, because we have that trusted advisor factor, where we have been vetted already, and ethics that we have to follow, that we are following, is built into our profession.
Yeah.
So.
And here's the way I think about it, is that because tax touches every single area of financial planning. I mean, we argue, is it 85% or is it 95%? It's almost everything, right?
Yep.
So because tax touches that, then you can't really have an effective tax planning conversation without bringing up financial planning topics. And how do you know if it's a financial planning topic? Well, if it's a topic that's associated with a client's life goal or some purpose, then it goes beyond tax because the client's getting some value out of it. So if that's the way that, our goal is to be able to address it in that way, and we'll and then ultimately be able to be that trusted advisor, but also go beyond that a little bit too. Be that guide.
The trusted advisor factor is there so they feel calmer, and that what we're giving them is important. But then past the trusted advisors, how human are we with our clients?
Right.
Like we talked about the human capital a lot here too, right? So us believe it or not, CPAs are very human.
Yeah.
I know.
Deep down, we really are.
Because a lot of people think we're not. They see us in blue suits. We haven't worn, I wear my blue dress today. That's our CPA color. But we're not really blue suits kind of people anymore. We're very proactive. We're all about educating our clients because we don't want them to come to us not knowing that we want them to be a part of our conversation. We're not talking to them. We're talking with them.
Well, and here's what I'm really encouraged about when it comes to the CPA profession as a whole is that we've talked forever about the idea of the trusted advisor, and we are the trusted advisor, and that's recognized everywhere you go.
All the time, yes.
But the other piece is that we definitely, even folks that are doing tax planning work and tax advisory work with their clients, they are talking about financial planning topics.
Yes.
So I think there's tremendous opportunities to kind of label it that way and bring that value out to the client. But CPAs as a profession naturally have these conversations, which is why, to your point, CPAs are uniquely qualified to be able to do it because it comes naturally. It's not something I have to wait for the client to ask the question because I'm going to proactively bring it up. And that's the challenge, I think, with assuming that your investment advisor, your investment person, is your financial planner. I can't tell you how many times that I have my financial planner. I ask a couple questions. They turn out to be their investment person.
Right.
And so just because they're the investment person doesn't mean they're doing financial planning. And some of them do a great job of going beyond the investments. But with CPAs, you can't do the tax without going beyond the tax, which is why CPAs are so effective at doing this and really do this.
So that was the one myth that we were talking about, is so that you feel like it's explaining, and I feel like you need to dig a little deeper on that one.
Okay.
Is where when we say their financial wealth manager, I call it, right? So the wealth manager, and especially in the market world, maybe they're not marketing. For example, a CPA would be looking also at your real estate investments, whereas what does a wealth manager? So
Yeah, and I think you run the risk of somebody focusing specifically on, let's say, investments,
right?
And that's great because we need the investment people. We need that in-depth knowledge.
We need the in-depth knowledge.
And it's absolutely an important part. But many times, what happens is there's an assumption that because they're handling my investments and because my investments are for a particular purpose in the future, that of course my investment person is going to be following up on all the things that might affect me in the future. And many times they want to do that because they want good client relationships. And many firms are broadening the number of different professionals to be able to do that within the firm. But the challenge is that they do have to go beyond that. And so many of the public when I talk to them, and we talk about, I've got to talk to my financial planner, and we ask a few probing questions, and it's like, well, how many times do you meet with them? And when you do meet with them, what do they talk about?
Right.
And if all they talk about is investments, then they're
not
not
your
really
financial
doing
planner.
financial planning. And then what happens, that's where the gap is. And the gap is that if it's got to get done. And if
Right.
it's not being done by a professional, meaning a CPA or a financial or an investment person, then it comes down to me. I've got to be able to make the things connect, and
Right.
that's a challenge. And so being proactive, the opportunity for CPAs and really any of the financial professionals, but in our profession, the opportunity to bridge that gap with our clients is so immense.
Yeah, like being the guide, being the person that pulls it all together.
Yeah.
Being the captain of the ship. You need one person that doesn't necessarily have skin in the game, but they are looking at all your different aspects of your financial life. And your wealth manager is not necessarily your financial planner.
Yeah,
That's a takeaway.
I like the concept, the idea of the conductor. There's a lot of different parts because it's and it's just that person that's going to help you make it sound beautiful and make your life what you want it to be, and
by they're doing that by looking at all aspects. They're not just looking at your stock portfolio or your bond portfolio. They're looking at your real estate. They're looking at your insurance. They're looking at your individual goals.
Right, but lest you get overwhelmed with that, the challenge is that doesn't mean that person has to be the expert in every single one of those areas. What they're going to do is they're going to bring in the right people. To be, I can help you. And when that happens, what happens is that you, as the financial planner, are on one side of the table with the client, and the person you're bringing in is there being able to present and talk. And then now they've got somebody that they're not all by themselves,
right? But
they've got an anchor. They've got somebody that can really, when it gets complicated, they can look to you and you can provide that second opinion. Because you're not the expert, but you know how those things fit together. You know how I like to call it Velcro. It's like, how is it sticky? And if you understand that, then you're a great supplement to whatever the real expert in that detailed area is telling you.
And what I have found, and I don't know, this is going to be the last one. I know we're going way past our time, but this is the last one. What I have found is that some of my clients, because I don't personally manage wealth, and when I'm doing financial planning with them, they don't trust one wealth manager because they feel like that wealth manager is going to push whatever it is that they're doing, and so they put their money with all the different wealth managers, and then the pictures is not painted right, so nobody has the right picture, and because they don't trust one person on their part, because they feel like, well, I don't know if I'm going to get that good thing. Where we come in as their trusted advisor, we get to see the whole picture. And that's what a real financial planner is.
Well, and that's the danger, is that they're trying to create trust. They don't trust one, so they try to say, I'll put some money here and some money there in some haphazard way. And they think they're solving the trust issue, but the reality is they've just made it much more complicated. And that's where CPAs and that trust factor comes in. And to the CPA that wants to go beyond tax, and again, there's huge tax effort that needs to go on too, but to CPA that wants to go beyond tax and help to bridge that gap, help to be that conductor that brings the stuff together, and in the process of doing that, they simplify the picture too.
And you get to see the whole picture, and it's nicely. You're like, wow. When you see, it's like painting by numbers. If you have numbers all over the place, you don't really know, right? But when the client sees the whole picture, it makes it more amazing for them.
Yeah, and I have to say, I've talked with a lot of CPAs, as working here for the AICPA and working in the PFP section, and the PFS credential that CPAs can have to be able to demonstrate their expertise in this area. But what I found personally, and what I found in CPAs that are involved in this area, is the immense personal satisfaction of being able to see your clients not just get through another tax year, but to get and to get that type of thing happen, but to be able to really I can't guarantee they're going to achieve their goals, but I can certainly set them on the road
Yeah.
to get them toward that direction, and the satisfaction of seeing them accomplish the little steps along the way. It's just, you can't get away from that. I mean, it's just beautiful.
You're right. And the last thing I will say about that is I absolutely agree with that. And it's like we're the ones, we show them, well, not just how the money works, we're showing them how you use money as a tool to achieve those goals.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you. And Dan is going to retire, but he's still going to be around, and we're always going to be talking. So thank you for being on the show with me, and
Okay.
it was a pleasure.
Thank you. I enjoyed being here. I could talk about this all day.
He can. So can I. So thank you,
you.
Dan. Thank you so
All right.
much.